Today I'm going to introduce you to the process of looking at historical newspapers on our library database, which is a research method you'll need to integrate into your next paper topic. So the idea is that the perusal of primary sources can bring an era to life and also stimulate creative thinking by considering how a wider lens on an issue can help contextualize the past, a lens you have from looking at the secondary sources. Direct evidence from historical newspapers is also a way to show and not tell, if you notice I've been emphasizing that. Find out more what people are thinking, get into their shoes, and in doing so, can set your paper apart, spices it up. I suggest that you peruse example files to get an idea of how this is done. And if you're considering the creative option, please look at the rationales for this option carefully, because doing a creative option does not get you out of writing a paper. You might be able to write a shorter paper, but the rationale has to have stuff in it and it has to make a point. I'm going to check back with you next week with feedback on your papers. Just notice that I moved up the discussion of primary sources to next Monday to give you some breathing room. I can't seem to make everybody happy with the peer review, so I think handing in a full draft by next Wednesday is too quick. So I would just consider a two-pronged process. Connect first with classmates in your group to share ideas, and then come back to share drafts of papers or sections of papers. I'm going to write 2 deadlines in the assignment, but Canvas discussions does not accommodate a 2-pronged deadline. So Canvas is not going to tell you what to do. You're going to have to do it yourself. Also, if you want full service response on your paper, I suggest making an appointment at the Writing Center. Those tutors are trained to respond to papers, so maybe a peer didn't give you a satisfactory response. Maybe they don't have the experience to do so. I can always look at your paper as well, or sections of your paper in a meeting. So to get to our library, you're going to need to set up your VPN connection, and the link is in the transcript of this video. I also put it in an announcement. And I'm just going to show you how it works on my computer. So my laptop's new, and I had no idea what this was. I kept being asked to sign up with the global connected thing, and I kept saying no because I didn't know what it was. So apparently that was bad because I needed it. And at one point, this section right here said nothing. So I couldn't get anywhere anyway, even if I wanted to connect. So you got to make sure wherever you go, this URL somehow is connected to a device that you're using. This will get you to the library, or basically get the library talking to your computer. So I'm going to show you how to get to some specific newspapers on our database. There's lots of ways to get places. This is just my quirky way to get places, and you'll figure out how to do it your way. Okay, so this is where the library is. Mardigian Library. Go to Academics. Go to Mardigian Library. And also, they're always changing the interface of the library, and they move where they put things. So sometimes in the process, I discover things along the way, which happened to me today, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. Okay, so we go to our databases, and we have a ton of historical newspapers, but I'm just going to go to the New York Times Historical. We also have the Los Angeles Historical, the Wall Street Journal Historical, Washington Post. Did I already say that? Some Detroit newspapers. And so it's kind of uneven, but the New York Times basically is pretty thorough database. So I go to the ends, and then I scroll down. I'm having good luck today with my internet connection, so I'm not making a fool out of myself. So I go to the ends. So we go to the New York Times Index Historical. So what you're going to do is you're going to be looking up newspaper articles about Alice Paul or about the suffragettes, just to enrich your knowledge. Practice doing this exercise, but you can be creative with this. If you want to find out a little bit more about what people were saying about feminism or women, if you want to find out a little bit more about what's going on with the Spanish flu, if you want to contextualize the paper a little bit more with your own sources, you can be creative. But my suggestion is not getting too creative, and then it's more work for you. So what you want to do is want to go to advanced search. So I'm going to say that our time period is about 1910 to 1920. So we're going to do a specific date range. So I'm just going to say any day 1910 to any day 1920. I'm going to probably say December 30th. It's the end of the 20th, 1920, and it's my birthday. So I'm going to say that, and then do a search. Oh, I forgot to search for something. So I'm going to do Alice Paul. And then do a search. Okay, so not even opening these things up, you can see that this was a hot topic. All right, tons of people were tweeting her in the news. If you want to maybe make it easier for yourself, find one more article, see what they had to say, embellish your paper. Now, another thing too, when you click on these primary sources, is on the side, along the way, is the software will give you more context. And it's a little kind of stalking you, just like social media, because earlier, and I'm going to tell you right now, I went to a Tennessee paper, and now it's trying to suggest Tennessee as a topic. So the idea is you're going to figure out how to do this yourself, find an additional newspaper that you think is good or that has some good stuff in it, integrate it into your paper. Again, the example, particularly the one I just posted, I think example 3.2, that writer did a good job with that. So having just browsed through the ends of the New York Times, I happened to notice that our library has the historical newspaper of a Nashville paper. So knowing that there was tension between the North and the South related to the African American vote, I'm just going to cruise back there and see if I can dig out anything up. So it looks like there's some leads. So I'm going back there. So this is my way of doing things, so it's not really super efficient. It's just, why isn't this going back? Let's see if this will help me get back. Okay, I'm going back to the ends. Also, another way you can do a more broad search is if you just go to ProQuest historical newspapers, and that can give you a ton of stuff, which can be almost overwhelming. So I'm going back to the ends. I'm staying in the ends. I'm going back to Nashville. In fact, this is a new addition, I think, to our library, so that's why I was kind of surprised. So when looking at these primary sources, I would say don't forget to fight your presentism. So remember that every person in the past was a product of their culture. So independent thought outside of a person's culture is pretty unusual. I think we want to look for the heroes who are like us, but we're probably going to find like 35% heroes, 75% heroes. Probably read stuff and go, oh, cool. Ooh, really? That's a lot of the experience that you're going to have when you look at some of these primary sources. So, of course, human decency and kindness can transcend cultural beliefs, but our goal is to try and understand the past and so not beat people up because they didn't know what we know. So anyways, having said all that, we know that the South, they're not really our heroes in the North. The South maybe had a little bit more of a racial view on suffrage, and we can't really say that the North was pure, but they did instigate the Jim Crow laws, and they also brought some tension to the suffrage movement that's shown in the Iron Jaw Angels, when there's some tension between Ida B. Wells and Alice Paul, which you can research as well. So I'm going to say suffrage, and then they wouldn't say African American back in the day, so that's another thing you have to keep in mind. You have to kind of get in the mindset of the time. That probably would use the term Negro. And so whoopsie. I forgot to do my dates. Otherwise you get really too much stuff. I'm going to forget about my birthday because I'm in a hurry. I'm going to go suffrage. Okay. All right. So here we see this is an issue and people are talking about it. I bet you can find some good stuff. Okay. Just looking at what people in Tennessee were saying about suffrage during this period, if that interests you. Another angle is to look at some historically black newspapers. So a really good newspaper for that is the Chicago Defender. So I've kind of perused the Chicago Defender pretty thoroughly, and I didn't find a lot about Ida B. Wells, but we'll just take a look at what they might have to say. Also, you can see we have a historical black newspaper overall database, which might be a good place to go. So we'll do advanced search back to our dates. Oops, I'm going to say suffrage. So here you go. Here are what people, African American writers and activists were saying about suffrage. Maybe not a ton of stuff. Let's see. You'll see in my list of sources, I included an article from the Chicago Defender, and I found that by typing in Ida B. Wells. What happened here? Okay, so Ida B. Wells Barnett, that was her maiden name. So looking at Ida B. Wells as a topic, you can probably find some good stuff and get some different perspective about suffrage. Beyond that, we're studying more thoroughly with Alice Paul. Okay. All right, so again, when looking at these primary sources, our goal is to try and understand the past and not talk at sources, but maybe talk with people, try and understand, getting perspective, synthesizing perspectives, being informative. So there's a concept in Buddhism called learning to stay. The idea is that there's value in staying in an uncomfortable place with a new idea without reacting. So in that space of not reacting, we can also assess our own biases and positionality. So it almost can be a reflective component to learning to stay. So our biases and awareness can also be a tool of analysis when using what we know as one tool, and then also admitting that there's things that we don't know. So that riding that edge between I know this stuff because I have lived through it, or I've studied it, or I'm very different than any of these people 100 years ago. I have different values, or admitting, you know what, I don't know a lot about this. I've got to study more. So I know I'm just going to close right now, and I'm going to say that I know October has been a long month, and a lot of you are taking on maybe more than you expected. Online learning is probably harder than we all thought, or maybe you're having problems at home or with your health. It's just a tense time. So I'm kind of hoping November will be calmer because we do have a break coming up, and maybe we know the ropes a little bit. But probably not. So let's just hang in there together and seek help if you need it, and please reach out to each other.